Ozymandias. So just once again, like all my other poetry analysis, I'm going to answer all this. We're going to go through a key point about each of the poetic choices, and hopefully with enough bit of detail and depth for you to go and get a really good mark in your literature paper too. So Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. This is a poem telling the story about a traveller who comes across an abandoned ruined statue of Ramesses II, who is an ancient pharaoh of Egypt. He examines the contrast between Ozymandias' perception of his everlasting power against the wild and barren natural landscape. He used to be somebody, but now nobody cares. He's not surrounded by anyone anymore. He's been forgotten. He's been dismissed by our society. So this shows the power of nature, the power of time. It shows the power of Ozymandias, his rule many thousands of years ago. But it also shows the power of the corrupting nature of power. It shows that when someone has power, it changes them and it ruins their outlook and it ruins their identity and the person that they are. They become someone we can't like, respect or admire. It shows the conflict of his perception and the reality of his power, but it also shows the conflict between the physical statue and the elements that are battering it and destroying it. Now, Shelley's key messages here is that human power is only ever temporary, and to try and hold on to it is futile, meaning it's pointless, it can't be done. And he shows that the power of nature and time will always overpower humans. We are insignificant in the greater scheme of the world. So, techniques. We've got two we're going to pick up on. First of all, we've got the fact that he's got this statue, and this statue is a symbol of Ozymandias. He used to be strong and formidable, but now his power, just like his statue, is weak and broken. Time has beaten it and destroyed it. He's no longer a significant person, the same way his statue is no longer a significant presence. Now this shows that power is determined by the people that you rule. No one has maintained the statue, showing that no one cares anymore. He doesn't have any power any longer. Now we've also got this imagery of the sinking head. This shattered visage is a reference to his face, which is sinking into the land. So this slow descent into the sand reflects how nature will always control human destiny. Nature is consuming him once again. But it is quite key that it's his face that is shattered and hidden. So his loss of power is now so complete that he's now even lost his identity. Our face is what recognises us, which defines who we are, and he no longer has that. He no longer has an identity or presence in any way, shape or form. Now structurally, this poem is a sonnet. It has 14 lines, which is a really interesting choice from Shelley, because sonnets are usually about love. So does this reflect how much Ozymandias loved himself and his power? Or is this Shelley's admiration for his supreme autocratic rule? Autocratic means it was completely independently his control and his power. He ruled on his own. It's a very old-fashioned, outdated mode of rule. Is Shelley showing some kind of respect and admiration for someone who can rule with that level? But this is not a perfect sonnet. It's got caesuras midline, it's got an imperfect rhyme, which is not befitting of a sonnet normally. So, is this Shelley showing that, like his statue, it's no longer perfect and strong? Or maybe Shelley is mocking his self-love. That Ozymandias here, through his narrative, is attempting a classic and strong structure, but actually it's broken, it's muddled, reflecting how his rule has been rejected and he is no longer significant. Couple of word choices for you. First of all, we've got antique. Now, an antique is something old-fashioned. It's not used anymore, just like Ozymandias' autocratic power. However, antiques are still precious and desirable. So is this again Shelley suggesting an admiration and respect for his autocratic rule? We've also got this colossal wreck. Now, this adjective indicates that the statue matches the huge ego of Ozymandias, and it's now a huge mess on this landscape. So Shelley is outlining that we can never keep our power, no matter how big it was or how strong it was. The bigger our power, the greater the fall. Now some alliteration. We've got this harsh, short C sound in cold command, which reflects the harshness of his autocratic rule. Ramesses II was a brutal leader, and that might be reflected through this harsh sound here. The harsh, unpleasant demise from such a height of power could also be reflected through this harsh sound, but the shortness of it, Kuko's very short sound, reflects how short his rule was in the grand scheme of time. He is nothing compared to the time of the world. Now I would zoom in on the word cold here, because this lack of empathy and love that he showed for his people while he was ruling is now being returned. We are now cold to him, and if we're going to really create a legacy of greatness, a leader must respect and empathise with his population. Now onto the rhythm and the rhyme. This poem is written in iambic pentameter, which means it's in 10 beats per line, with a certain rhythm which you don't need to concern yourself with to get his 3 GCSEs. Now this strong, tight control over the rhythm reflects the tight control that he had in his rule, but the certainty and the continuity of the meter reflects the inevitability of his demise. We know it's going to be, once we've got halfway through, we know it's going to be iambic pentameter for the rest of it. It's inevitable to us, same way it's inevitable that someone with this much arrogance, this much control, this much power is never going to keep it forever. Iambic pentameter is also a traditional and very old-fashioned structure in literature, which perhaps reflects again how outdated this autocratic style of rule is.